Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. This will be a Baltimore Positive edition. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. The Maryland Crab Cake Tour is brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. Let yourself play. And certainly the Ravens played on Sunday night. We were not as optimistic as, however, the result was. Luke Jones joins us now to discuss what was, we can get hyperbole about the greatest home game of all time, but I think you could throw this one in the group. I don't know exactly where the group is, the instant classic part of all of this, but certainly snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat, coming from behind, doing it on national television, but mostly doing it against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Luke.
We said it last week. ESPN's going to want the Ravens for more primetime games. I think NBC joins them in that sentiment. And you just said it. I don't know where it ranks, but I think it definitely had a little bit of a vibe of Jacksonville in 2000, although that was such a significant, put the Ravens on the map as a legitimate NFL franchise. But when you consider the parallel with a team that they hadn't beaten, and all these losses to Kansas City, Jacksonville, they couldn't beat in those early years, and it just felt like a real coming of age moment. And especially with the backdrop of the injuries, you just mentioned media expectations were very low. I wasn't interacting with many fans who had much hope for Sunday night, and I think it was a reminder of this head coach quarterback combination. As much as John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco did special things, and ultimately they won a Super Bowl. So Lamar Jackson's still chasing that. But John Harbaugh's second act, a reminder that he and Lamar Jackson as a head coach quarterback duo, pretty darn special. And I had a few friends texting me in the final moments and shortly thereafter when the Ravens, first of all, recover the fumble, and then moments later get the 4th and 1 to seal the game. They said it was as loud as they ever remembered it being at the stadium. And, we think back to those good old days with Ray Lewis and one of the greatest defenses of all time, and then the Ed Reed era and those defenses that followed. And then when Joe Flacco came along and John Harbaugh came along and those special moments. So not to say that the last couple of years hadn't been that, but also let's keep in mind, first time a full stadium in 20 months. So there was an electricity there, and boy, what great theater the fans were treated to on Sunday night. And just a really, really important win for this football team. You don't want to exaggerate it. It's week 2. There's still a lot of concerns about this team that we'll continue to talk about, where their margin for error gets smaller and smaller. We don't know what's going to happen with Ronnie Stanley. John Harbaugh was a little ominous about that in the post game. A couple other guys get banged up, Brandon Williams and Deshaun Elliott sustaining a concussion, but you get a win and you beat the team that you haven't been able to beat since Lamar Jackson became the starting quarterback 3 years ago. So a long time coming, as Mark Andrews said in some post-game comments, but boy, just a really, really fun, exciting football game and a really significant win for the Ravens, as important as it can get in week 2. How about we say that?
Luke Jones is here. He will be in Owings Mills all week. The Ravens are taking on Motown and headed off to Detroit this weekend. We will have full coverage all week long. The Maryland Crab Cake Tour, presented by the Maryland Lottery, will move to Greenmount Station. We're going to Hampstead, Carroll County on Friday this week. We will be with Mayor Brandon Scott on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour, presented by the Maryland Lottery, on the 8th of October at Coco's as well. The game that it would remind me of a little bit in regard to the hopelessness of the mission, right, was the Denver game that the Ravens were not supposed to win on the Monday night, and the Chris McAllister. Dude, was that 02?
02, right.
That was Monday. Before I was married. Oh, my God. That was a long time ago. But it happened in my end zone, the seats that I'm on, where, McAllister caught the ball and went meandering through. It looked like half the crowd was headed to halftime that night. The crowd on Sunday, and I will say this with all due love and respect, Luke, okay? I've been going to games a long time. I've been there from the beginning, 98 in the upper deck at this stadium. I sold about 1,400 PSLs in 3 sections over the course of time, and I hang behind my section. This was the first time in a long time to turn around in my seats, check in with how many of the original people who were in the seats in my church on Sundays were always there. And it's dwindling down the handfuls now. Like literally there may be 15 or 20 people left in all of the people who sat in those sections. And the people that sat in those sections sat there for years and years and years and years. That's why I call it church. It was every Sunday. It went on for 2 decades. The people at the games now are just completely different people. I mean, I walked through the tailgate. I walked around. I was at Hammer Jacks. I went to Jimmy Camaneros' tailgate. I walked back to the Jameson this and the bridge that. I walked everywhere. There are different people coming to games now. So for me to say, oh, that McAllister game, oh my God, it was 19 years ago, and I was there, and maybe you were there, and maybe some other people were there. But this thing is churned over from 20 years ago when McAllister was doing those things and Ray was there. I saw Ray come out and dance, and I looked around and I thought, percentage of people here that never saw Ray Lewis dance when he was a player, percentage. And I bet it's going on 60. I mean, we're really getting to a huge turnover place. And this is what I thought about. And I'll let you go through the X's and O's. It was 36-35. There were twists and turns. There were penalties. There were not penalties. There were all sorts of things that happened in the game. But I want to acknowledge the crowd in buying $44 tickets from an airline company. I'm sitting in $150 seats that were priced up to $195 sitting next to me. There were Chiefs fans all over the place. There were Chiefs fans everywhere. There were Chiefs fans to my left. There were Chiefs fans to my right. The thing that I thought about, Luke, as I walked out of the locker room and Adafi Owe does his thing, and you and I departed and we left, as I walked up through the fans and I saw people waiting for the players to come out, take pictures and like all of that. But it was very clear there's a lot of people doing this for the first time, right? So to me, Sunday, dude, I took video coming out of the press level area. You would have thought they won the Super Bowl. Like the amount of noise when you walked out to just go to the press event as the stadium was clearing out was extraordinary, but it was different people. And I keep saying this. These are the people that need to come back. These are the people that need to come back next year, next month, because those people I've turned around and that are gone, all 98% of them, they're not coming back. My friend came up to me at halftime, my dear friend Steve Schilling said, I lost my wife last year. She won't be here anymore. And I don't know what to say to that, but someone else is in that seat. And it's imperative that that person in the seat that spent $195 on a ticket I used to spend $35 on, had a good time, saw the show, liked when the lights went out, liked the sound on the scoreboards, likes Lamar Jackson, a lot of Lamar Jackson jerseys in the house, right? I didn't see a lot of Ray Lewis or John Ogden or Ed Reed or Terrell Suggs. I used to see plenty of those. Everybody's got a new jersey. Everybody's there. This is their chance to recapture a fan base, Luke, and they need memories. You remember the night we beat Mahomes? Oh my God, I have to be there. I'm 19 years later, I'm still talking about Chris McAllister in a year they won 7 games or whatever, right? But it's those moments that make you need to come back to the game. And I saw that as really, that's why I put on my tweet, an important night for the franchise. An important night for the franchise.
Yeah. And the last couple of years have been really exciting, but last year you had so few fans who were able to attend. They had a couple games. The Pittsburgh game, they had 4,000, I think it was. So you had a lost year, which nothing could be helped about that from their perspective. But I mean, new generations are here. We're getting older. I mean, even me, I was a kid in high school, a senior in high school when the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2000. I mean, that's a long time ago. That's 20 years ago at this point. So you do have new generations of fans coming and people that were, younger children than me watching the Ravens at the beginning who might not have great memories of Ray Lewis in his absolute prime or Trent Dilfer playing ball control offense and might not have memories of Jamal Lewis in the same way that you and I do, but that's okay, right? I mean, you
might not have memories of Jeff Blake or Kyle Bowler either, and that's good.
Sure, Stoney Case or Vinny Testaverde. We go down the list. I mean, in fact, the Ravens defense was very 1996-like for stretches of Sunday night's game. But it's good to see new fans, and you just said it when they have an experience like that game where So many people will say they were there in the same way we always joke about the streak 21-31, 250,000 people say they were there that night. This is one of those moments, you hope, especially if the Ravens can now use this to get their bearings, so to speak. We talked about that a lot after week one. I mean, this is still a team dealing with a ton of injuries, still a lot of uncertainty, and still a long season left. You look at the landscape of the AFC, everyone's 1-1 except for two teams. And what, two teams are 2-0 and three teams are 0-2 in the AFC.
Who knew
Really
the
speaks
Raiders
to
were going to be this good, right?
Oh, and that's the other thing. On the back end of having beaten the Chiefs, you now do look back at week one. And I wouldn't have felt this way nearly as much if the Ravens fell to 0-2, because I think that's a real defeatist way of looking at it. But you win this game, and then you do look at week one and say, all right, well, the Raiders just went to Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers, who, okay, most people seem to think the Steelers are the third best team in the AFC North going into the season. But you have to be impressed with what the Raiders did on Sunday. So now you look at that week one loss and say, all right, maybe it wasn't quite as bad. And that's what everyone is guilty of it. Even you and me, we do tend to magnify the result of week one and look at that. And there tends to be a little more of a sky is falling mentality. Not that we were saying the season was over, but you do look at the injuries and then that loss, knowing Kansas City was coming to town, it wasn't difficult to envision a scenario where this thing gets away from you very quickly. We talked about that in 2015 with the injuries, and you start, you're on the road for the first couple games, you fall to 0-2, and before you know it, you're 1-6 and the season's over. I think this was really a testament to John Harbaugh and his coaching staff that he had these guys ready to play, and there was no feeling sorry for themselves with everything they've dealt with over the last month. So
well, every guy that's playing for a hurt player has an opportunity. I mean,
sure.
Devontae Freeman was sitting at home 2 weeks ago, and these running backs that I don't even have, Justin Ellis isn't even in the program, right? I mean, these guys are you're out making tackles and making plays, and I'm like, who's the number, who's the guy? And I don't know the guy. And Luke, I even went down the roster for myself, having now been not in the locker room for the first time in 26 years, in 18 months, 19 months, whatever it is. I only know about 12 of the guys on the team. Like know them, like if I walked up to them, I would know what they look like, where their locker is, what their name is. The turnaround over 2 seasons with the team has led me saying, who is that guy? Who is Brandon Stevens? What number does he wear? Like learning all of that on the fly during all of this, that it is sort of a re-education period, I think, for any Ravens fan, including how to get down to the stadium, where to tailgate, how to get in, whether I have to have my vaccine card, keep my mask on, like all of the new rules that go along with this, but making your way down. And I don't want to diminish this, because when I've had extra tickets, I can't find people to take them. I certainly would have a hell of a time finding them at $195 a throw to think that I'm going to sell those tickets. But the other part of it is people go into the games and the amount of money, the expectation goes up. It used to just be a football game to me. When I start thinking about it as an Eagles concert and my wife and I dropped $325 on Sunday night to go to a Ravens game, that's a different level of then, somebody's got a ticket, we want to go. And I know in your case, all the dudes you went to the game with, and you're a young guy, like my son's a young guy and he doesn't want to go to the games. And we had to talk about that at the Hall & Oates concert Saturday night, just why he doesn't go to the games. And now it's price, like my kid's not spending $150 to go to a Ravens game to sit in the upper deck. Might spend 44 at some point, but I digress on that. But I think people going, you've experienced that. If I gave you 8 free tickets to the Ravens game, you'd have a hard time finding 8 friends to go. And I think there's a little bit of that. So me seeing these young people that I've never seen or never recognized, certainly never listened to AM radio, at the game and engaged in the game, I think there's a generational thing that happened that I felt that I'll continue to harp upon if they win. But to your point, 0-2 if they lose, go and give up the opening kickoff to Detroit and you're losing there, things can turn. And I want to get back into the hardcore of the actual game, and we'll work backward. But I'm sitting next to you. It's 4th and 1. I'm like, they got to punt, right? Like they're not going to give the ball to Patrick Mahomes at this point on the field and give The game would be over if they don't make it. So therefore they have to punt, right? That's old wisdom. That's not Harbaugh wisdom. Harbaugh wisdom is we're going to go for it, we're going to win, or we're going to lose. But if we punt, we're going to lose anyway. And there was certainly some feeling that every time Mahomes got the ball that they were going to score. But to your point, the defense did not allow that. That sort of confidence was not afforded Mahomes, especially in the second half when the crowd started getting on him.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it, and the little stream of consciousness that you just expressed there, as far as what's going on at the end there. John Harbaugh saying, "We're going to get this," and Patrick Mahomes isn't going to get the ball back. I mean, that's as simple as it gets in that scenario. And analytics would tell you absolutely go for it there. And we've seen this, and we've seen this transition. John Harbaugh started doing more and more of this stuff, even in the last few years with Joe Flacco as the quarterback. But when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson in short yardage situations, or this running game in general in short yardage situations, he uses it. And we've seen it. And that was very reminiscent, of course, of Seattle a couple years ago with the fourth down that they ended up scoring and ended up winning the football game. But it's really that mentality of coaching to win, not being in the position where you're coaching not to lose. He knew that you punt the ball back to Patrick Mahomes, all it takes is one or two plays. And we saw that, even though the defense did play much better. So maybe the argument was your defense is playing better. At the same time, it's all right. They've gotten some stops here. They had the interception late in the third quarter, got the punt, they forced a punt, they get the fumble. Are you going to stop them again? And I think when you're in a position where it's 4th and 1, and look, what's the statistical probability of converting that? It's pretty high. It's probably up in the 70 to 80% range, converting a 4th and 1.
You would say it's 4th and 1 traditionally over the history of football. You need a fat back, right? Or you need a quarterback sneak, or you need a fat back. You just need to push the line a little bit, that goal line sort of mentality. You don't think, skinny, quick quarterback. You know what I mean? You don't think about that traditionally because that's never been afforded in the history of football. Hey, we got a skinny, really fast, nimble, nobody can catch him, kind of quarterback. Nobody's had that at the line of scrimmage. What they usually do is bring in, Christian Okoye or whatever, right? Don McCauley in the old days to get a yard, right? And it's different now, especially with this offense. The probability you talk about, can Lamar Jackson get 1 yard? That's different than can a team get a yard.
No question. And you just said it. They can still do that up the middle thing. Why? Because a team is still mindful of him taking it outside, as we saw in the second touchdown run that he had, where he runs to the outside and is untouched to the point where he does a flip over the goal line, which I don't know how I felt about it at the time from considering all their injuries. But that aside, you just have so many options in that situation that the Ravens' statistical probability of converting that compared to most offenses is higher. It's just going to be. And that reflects in the fact that they've rushed for over 3,000 yards the last 2 years. So it really was a case of looking at the probability of doing that compared to punting the ball back to Mahomes. And look, they wouldn't have had a lot of time. That's not to say it would have automatically been over if they give the ball back to him, but I mean, we've seen that movie, right? And again, the defense had gotten the stops that they did at the end: interception, punt, fumble. Are you going to get another stop? I mean, it's kind of like if you're flipping a coin and you get heads 3 times in a row. Are you going to get a 4th heads there, or is it going to be tails? I mean, so it really was a case of let's not flip that coin again. Let's get this and go home, and that's what they did. So. I mean, I really commend him. As I posted on Twitter, John Harbaugh has big guts. Just put it that way. And let's face it, the second guessing would have been extraordinary. And it was very reminiscent in that way of what Bill Belichick tried to do against Indianapolis years ago in I believe, a Sunday night game, Sunday night or Monday night, where the Patriots went for it in a 4th and 1 situation and didn't get it. And Peyton Manning and the Colts got the ball back and ended up winning the game. But it was the same mentality there. Am I going to really trust my defense to get one more stop here? Or am I going to try to win it right here? And we have seen time and time again over the last few years, maybe not quite this dramatic, but we've seen so many of those 4th and 1s where they've gone for it, even on their own side of the field, because they have that much confidence. And they've studied this from an analytics standpoint to say, hey, this is actually the right move. This looks really risky, but if you really start crunching the numbers and doing the math,
it is risky. If you don't get a yard, you lose the game. And if you punt the ball, he's
punting's
still got
risky
to go
too.
60 yards to win the game. But you got to get a yard. If you don't get a yard, you're going to lose the game. I mean, that's where it was to me. It was that's the perilous part of this, that most coaches, to your point, wouldn't play to win, as they say. They play to extend the game and make sure that they're not giving up field position in a game of flag. I mean, literally, that's what this is, right? So to your point, 1 yard wins the game. Punting the ball, we got to go out there and we've got to do more. They've got to do more, but we've got to do more. To your point, it's a one card blackjack, right? It's just give me one card river, And when you can make that yard, you look smart. When you don't, Bill Belichick still didn't want to have that press conference, right?
Sure. But there's plenty of risk involved in punting the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. And that's my point is there's always that risk. And there's a lot of
punt block too earlier.
Right. But there's that hidden risk there that an old school way of looking at it, we kind of ignore that in the same way that it drives me nuts. I'm going to pick on Mike Tomlin here. The Steelers punted in a situation in the fourth quarter on Sunday. They had no business punting. They were down 2 scores and they punted with, 8 minutes to go. They had a fourth down, but it was a shorter fourth down, and they decided to punt. It's like, okay, this feels much more like, well, we're punting it back, and we're going to see if the other team makes a mistake, but we're really not improving our chances to win here whatsoever. In fact, we're hurting our chances to win here. So anyway, not to get too far off topic there, but coaches make these decisions that in most cases end up being about risk aversion. This was a case where John Harbaugh was maximizing his team's win probability by going for it, trusting his guys, trusting his quarterback. Another classic sideline interaction that NBC did a great job picking up in real time. And the Ravens convert and go home with a win. First win over the Chiefs since 2012, and a very, very important win for Lamar Jackson and this current era of Ravens.
We've been Lamar. There are 52 other guys on the field, including Odafe. We will be talking about all of that. Luke Jones is here, all of our WNST coverage, and our Wise conversations brought to you by our friends at Wise Markets. I finally had the Wise $6 signature crab cake, and it was pretty good. I'll be honest with you. But what I really loved was that Bell Garden sub they had over there at Fullerton. So make sure you're checking out Wise Markets. We'll be having more and more conversations with them and our Wise conversations. Also, our friends, Leonard Raskin, our friends at Raskin Global, giving you a chance to live the American dream and experience the American dream. Leonard will be here later in the week, as will all of our clients and sponsors and friends. Bill Cole's going to be here from Cole Roofing. I know Todd Schuler's been on a little bit of a respite around here. He's going to come back raring in with the Ravens at 1-1 to talk some legal issues this week, as well as Johnny O, who joined us over at Costas for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. We're going to be at Greenmount Station on Friday up in Hampstead. Going to have some fun guests. I'm going to catch up with Chris, one of my favorite crab cakes traditionally. So I'm going back, sort of the Angelina style. So I'm looking forward to getting back up to Carroll County. We've had so many Raven shows over the course of time. We're also going to be at Coco's in the city with Brandon Scott, our mayor, on the 8th of October. So the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery, Let Yourself Play, is coming to you soon. I am Nestor. He is Luke. Plenty more of Ravens residue and getting ready for Detroit. You'll hear from Johnny O here this week. We got a lot of things happening. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net. And don't forget, it's Maryland Restaurant Week. Get out, get some food, get that 3-course dinner at the local establishment right down the street from you. Big appreciation to Ram and our friends at Restaurant Association of Maryland as well.